Welcome to Light Cellar Radio. My name is Malcolm Saunders. This show is all about helping you recreate your relationship to food. Access the ultimate in everyday nourishment, natural foods, everything. We're diving in. And today I did a Facebook Live all about Reishi. I was asking the question, I started off with, if you could only choose one herb to take for the rest of your life, and you could only choose one, what would it be? We had a few different interesting comments. One that came up, which I had chosen for this show, which is Reishi Mushrooms. So we dive deep into Reishi Mushroom. If you listen, you're going to learn some of the other names for Reishi that relate to the myths, the legends, the lores, what has been said about it throughout time, some of those nutritive and medicinal benefits that Reishi Mushroom has. You're going to learn about where Reishi can be found and a little known fact about Reishi and where it grows in the world. You're also going to learn how to create Reishi mushroom tea. I'll walk you through the steps and how to maximize the benefit and the most effective potency of a Reishi mushroom, taking those slices, making a tea. It's an action-packed episode here. Hope you enjoy. Let's dive in. All right, we're live on Facebook and Instagram. How are you guys doing tonight? Post it down below, let me know, give me some hearts, give me some likes, whatever it is. Wanted to jump in on this theoretical question. If you could only take one herb for the rest of your life, what would you take? What would it be? What would you take? Let me know down below, type it down, and I'm gonna share with you what I would take if I could only take one herb. Now, fortunately, we actually don't need to make that decision. We have a wonderful access to all different kinds of herbs from around the world, and that's a wonderful thing. We get to play, we get to explore, we get to experiment, we can have a lot of fun. So we're gonna focus in on the one herb that I would take, but I'd love to hear from you guys. What would you take? If you could only take one herb, what would it be? So we've got, all right, Nick. Hey, Uplifting Prana on Instagram. Nick, Reishi, hands down. Yes, so we've got a Reishi getting voted in on Instagram. How about Facebook world? Anyone watching? Type it down below. What would it be? For sure. So I'm going to agree with Nick. Hands down, I think it would be Reishi. That would be the one herb that I would take if I could only pick one. Now again, it's theoretical. We can take more. We don't have to just choose Reishi, but I'm going to share a little bit about Reishi, what it's all about, and why it would be that number one herb, because it has so many benefits that it would be a good one if it's the only one that you would take to add in because of all those benefits. Now, hint, if you want to start adding Reishi with other herbs, it's a great foundational herb to take. There's so many herbalists that I know that is their number one herb that they take every single day because it is so amazing, because it is so incredible. It's got a long, long history of use, and in fact, Reishi grows on every single continent in the world except Antarctica. Did you know that? Who knew that? Who knew that Reishi is that prevalent, that available and abundant throughout the world? Okay, Nadine, hard decision to make. I know it is. So, but she chose chaga. Cool. So there's two for mushrooms. Anybody else? Instagram. Anybody else want to in there? We got Wealthy Life. We got Come Enjoy Life. I like that. We got Dr. Cowan's Powders. Welcome everyone, and just keep dropping some comments, give some likes, give some hearts. And we're going to throw out that theoretical question. You guys can type that in anytime. And I'm going to share a little bit about Reishi, why that would be my choice and why so many other herbalists I know, that is their number one. So it's abundantly available around the world. So even though most of the legends, most of the lores, most of the kind of esteem comes from the Chinese herbal tradition, it has been used throughout many other traditions. Dr. Terry Willard, when he wrote a book, he actually wrote a book, I believe it was in the 80s or 90s. It's out of print now, but he wrote a book all about reishi, the herb of spiritual potency, and he very much drew a lot of his inspiration, the science, everything coming from Eastern traditions, and that was kind of where he found his foundation and love for reishi. But he said while he was traveling in the Amazon, he saw a reishi, and I can attest to that. I found reishi in Ecuador as well, and he happened to be in Peru down there. and saw it, and he asked the shaman, the guide that he was with, and of course it wasn't that name, it wasn't Reishi, they had their own name, and he asked them about the properties. What does this mushroom do? And the answer was that they used it to to help them remember the forest. So if they had to go out into the city, if they had to kind of leave where they were, that was a good one for connecting them back to the forest and to themselves. So that was pretty cool. All right, so Nick, on Instagram, he says Shazandra a close second. I would say so too. Who else has got a comment? What herb would you take if you could only take one? Post it down below. We're live on Facebook. We're live on Instagram. We're double teaming this. It's a wonderful Friday night. We're just having fun, hanging out. Glad you're with me. Type some comments down below. Hit some likes, some hearts, and let's dive in. So there are a number of different forms of reishi. This is probably maybe the most common. It's what's called red reishi. Look how huge that is, right? That's bigger than my head. This reishi. It can also come in, this red reishi, a much smaller form, so not as huge. There's also what's called antler reishi. Depending on how it's grown, it's almost kind of a little phallic spear. Looks like antlers, really, sprouting up. And this one here I actually found in the an Oriental like Chinese store, the TNT Market in Calgary, in the produce section. It was a fresh reishi in the produce section. I mean, unfortunately, it was like styrofoam and plastic wrap all around it, but I bought a little box of them and used most of it for tea and then just kept a little bit for a specimen. So look how beautiful those are. I found reishis that look exactly like this down in North Carolina, Tennessee, when I was down there into the forests, and it's such a cool sight. Like, imagine walking through the forest and finding this, this beautiful red mushroom. You can tell it's got this almost lacquered-like appearance. Another name for reishi is the varnished conch, especially on the stem. You can really see how varnished it is, how it looks like that. Now it occurs naturally. So the Latin name for reishi is Ganoderma lucidum. Ganoderma, that translates to shiny skin, and that's exactly what we have here. Now, apart from red reishi, you can get what's called black reishi. And you can see it's got that black skin, again, still very shiny. Now, we don't have reishi. If you're here in Alberta, we don't have it growing here. We just don't have the same types of hardwood that it grows on. These are not mushrooms that grow off the ground. They absolutely grow off of trees. So you need to have the right type of wood, the right type of host for reishi to grow. And all types of reishi are what we call, they're the fruiting body. So the actual organism is the thread, the mycelium-like thread that's through the tree. You've seen mycelium in the soil, right? Those white little threads. You could almost mistake them for tiny little rootlets, hairs. It's the mycelium. That's the actual organism. And in the case of reishi, every year it puts out a fruit. So if you come to a spot where you find reishi in the forest, you want to come back to it again the next year, and you can harvest a new flush of mushrooms. So very cool. And if you're a mushroom forager, this is why you don't share your spots, right? You keep them a secret if you found one. This one here is related to reishi. It's another Ganoderma species. This one I did find here in Alberta, in Calgary. This one came, and the Latin name is Ganoderma applanatum, which is also known as the artist conch. So it's not black, it's not red. You can see it's more brown. And then on the underside, it is very much like our red reishi, where it is what we call a polypore. So instead of gills, it's got an underside that has tiny thousands of little pores, little holes, and that's from which the seeds or the spores of the mushroom are released. So again, this being the fruiting body, how it reproduces, how it spreads its seed, shall we call it. In mushroom terminology, it would be a spore. It's released through that bottom, that spore pad. And when we talk about the fungi kingdom, there's a lot of misconceptions around mushrooms in the health world. Less so now because they're becoming more and more known, more and more popular. The standard advice used to be, if you were dealing with a fungal infection, if you're dealing with candida, any of that type of thing, they would say, nope, no mushrooms, don't do it. However, we know that these types of mushrooms, the medicinal mushrooms, the polypores, you actually do want to take. And if we think about it, I'm going to break it down for you this way. So these types of mushrooms have antifungal properties, antibacterial properties, antiviral properties. Now they need to protect themselves from the lower forms of fungi, the yeasts, the viruses, the bacteria, so they've developed chemicals and constituents that makes them as such, antibacterial, antiviral, until they spore. So this reishi, if it grows out and releases its spore, that signifies the end of its life cycle. Then all these critters, the bacteria, the lower forms of yeast, different fungi, then start to break this down. And but until then, it holds its own, holds its vitality, and it has that antifungal, antibacterials. Okay, so we've got, uplifting prana. Someone once said to me, chaga eats candida for breakfast. Absolutely. Totally antifungal properties, right? So if you're doing that type of regime, cut out sugar, that would be number one, and then add in these types of medicinal mushrooms to help you with dealing with those lower forms of fungi and yeast. So awesome, right on. Nick says, can you touch on the importance of polysaccharides? Yes, so polysaccharides, these are that name, saccharides, like sugar, poly, long chain sugars, complex sugars. So if we think of white sugar, that's a very simple sugar that helps, it can nourish us, feed us, but it's very simple. It's into the bloodstream, can spike our bloodstream very quickly. But a polysaccharide, long-chain sugar, very complex sugar, to the point where you actually don't taste the sweetness. The flavor of these mushrooms is very bitter, and these polysaccharides can actually be used medicinally and help feed the immune system. Reishi is what we call an immunomodulator, so it can actually help if someone has an overactive immune system or an underactive immune system. It helps regulate the immune system, and it's through the action of these polysaccharides, the beta-glucans, or some of those compounds that have been studied that are known to have these effects. Now, I'm going to reference a couple of books here. So this is a fantastic one. Who's got this one? Adaptogens by David Winston. Really great one here. And if we open up to his page on reishi, so again, adaptogens, herbs for strength, stamina, and stress reliefs. Reishi is all that, so much and more. And let's see, was it in this book? Oh, I think it was in the other one. We were talking about the immunomodulating effects. Let's see, I've got a couple of ones here to reference I want to show you guys. The Ron Tea Garden, Ancient Wisdom of the Chinese Tonic Herbs. We've got reishi in here. I just opened up a few pages before I got on, and yes, okay, so it was Ron Tea Garden. So he was talking about it in here. So reishi does not stimulate the immune system, it regulates it. And this is what makes it so precious. So again, if it's an excessive, helps in the case of autoimmune diseases and allergies, right? Overactive immune system, helps bring it down, reduces that. A group of chemicals known as ganoderic acids help fight autoimmune diseases such as allergies. They inhibit histamine release, improve oxygen utilization, and liver functions. There's that saying about certain herbs, doctrine of signatures, right? The reishi, super good for the liver protector, kind of sort of, if you get the right shape, definitely looks like a liver. All right, what else do we got here? Reishi, if we come back to this title, and how adaptogens can help us with stress. Terry Willard, his famous tagline is, reishi helps protect the academic from their own mind. So when we're overthinking, when we're worrying, it's able to kind of just help calm us, ground us. The herb of spiritual potency, it's also been known as. So in the Chinese herbal system, they talk about this Jing, Qi, and Shen. So Qi, many of us know, this idea of energy, right? So from our food, from our liquids that we consume, from breathing, we get a lot of Qi, and that's the energy we have day to day. Now, I'm sure you guys have had that experience where the second wind, right? You're kind of waning on your Qi, feeling a little tired, but you keep going and you keep going, and then you get that second wind. Well, that second wind is actually tapping into your Jing energy, so a different type of energy. And they say this is the energy that you're born with that kind of sets the stage for your life and your constitution. So another analogy is a candle. So if your candle, the base of it, the wax, how tall is it, how thick is it, how big is it, that would constitute what your Jing is, and then the wick and the flame is the Qi, right? The fire, the heat that's coming off of that, and depending on how big the candle is will also influence how big the Qi is. Now the Shen is actually the light, and it's said to be more of those spiritual light qualities. So Reishi is said to be a three treasure tonic, so Jing, Qi, and Shen. It feeds, it nourishes all of those. And I think the one that it's most known for really having effect on is Shen. So someone like a rock star has a lot of Qi, a lot of energy. They're on stage, Whereas a total opposite, someone like the Dalai Lama has a lot of Shen, a lot of kind of, peaceful spirit, radiance, someone that you can see it in their eyes. They're just glowing. It's that light, and they're very peaceful. So Reishi, in all that taglines, right? The herb of spiritual potency, helping protect the academic from their own mind, is one of the great anti-stress Shen herbs. So for calming anxiety, overthinking. A number of people have given me feedback, things like insomnia, right? So a little Reishi tea before bed can really help with sleep, calming anxious thoughts. It's a great heart medicine as well. So excellent. Right on. Essential wellness, yoga, uplifting prana. We got an answer. Gynostemma. So we started off this conversation. If you could only take one herb, what would it be? We've had a few answers. Reishi was the first one mentioned. We've had chaga. We've had Shizandra. Now we've had Gynostemma. So if you were just joining us, hey, just let me know. What would be the one herb that you would take if you could only take one? Just for fun, right? Of course, we aren't just going to pick one. We have an amazing abundance and access to herbs from all around the world, all the different traditions, and just for fun, wanted to hear that from you guys. What herb would you choose? Thought we'd just come on with that question, and I'm answering the question myself, and Reishi is the herb that I would take. That's the one I would go for, absolutely, because of some of the legends, the myths, the lores, the science. It's all there. This is another really good, fantastic book, The Fungal Pharmacy by Robert Rogers, a local Albertan. He's based up in Edmonton. Fantastic guy. He's a real fun guy for sure, and he's got a whole section on reishi. Of course he would, right? The Fungal Pharmacy, Medicinal Mushrooms of Western Canada, arguably one of the most important medicinal mushrooms. We've been talking about the immune system. We've been talking about liver support. We've been talking about those Shen qualities. We've been talking about the heart and calming the mind. Well, there's so much more that reishi helps with. How about blood sugar balance? This is something that, for me, way back when I was a vegetarian, I wasn't a vegetarian, I was a carbitarian, right? So much sugar I'd be consuming, my blood sugar was totally out of whack. And reishi is a really great herb to help balance and stabilize the blood sugar. All right, I'm just going to check in on a couple of other comments. All right, we've got a few more people joining in. Hey, got Vanessa, we've got Toffee Wanders, Veronica, hello, Svetlana, how's it going? Beverly, Magnesium, hey Brent on there. And yeah, so Brent has got a question about what types of reishi. That's a really good question, and actually can tie in to that aspect of Shen. It said that the wild reishi has more Shen than a cultivated reishi. So cultivated reishis can be awesome. They can be still very effective, but it all depends on what the medium is that it's grown on. So as I mentioned when I started off, and if you're just joining us, we're talking about reishi, how it is a tree mushroom. So it does grow out of wood, so it needs to be hosted on a tree, particular types of hardwood. That's the best host for it to give it the food that it needs to grow. And when they cultivate reishi, you can have a whole spectrum, all the way from what's called dawn wood, which is original wood, the wood that you would find in the wild that reishi grows on. Some cultivators are growing it on that specific wood. That's going to produce a really superior, ideal reishi, and therefore full of the chemistry and be a great product. It can also be grown on sawdust. Again, depending on the type of wood, can be grown on rice or straw, and I think that would have a lesser quality. One of the most craziest things I'd heard, and we're trying to bring this in, is a reishi grown on a substrate of 42 different medicinal herbs. So if what reishi is grown on has an effect on the end result, would you guys like to try something that a reishi product that was grown on 42 different medicinal herbs? Woo, that would be amazing. So we're working on bringing that into the Light Cellar as one of our products. Super stoked for that. In the meantime, what we do have is we have some reishi slices. So this is a tough woody mushroom that you just take it, slice it, and then that makes it much easier to work with, right? So if you're going to talk about creating tea, to have it in a slice form. So these have been cultivated, comes from China. We make sure it's a high quality. As from, a lot of things from China, you can have the best ever, you can have the worst ever. And so these are some reishi slices that are from China. They're good, they're great. They're like a standard for most people. However, we just got in some wild reishi from Canada. So this is out in Ontario. We've got a guy that's out there harvesting sustainably, and it's less of an issue. I know there's a lot of controversy around the sustainability of chaga, but with reishi mushrooms, it's much less of an issue because they're an annual, every year, or sorry, perennial. Like that fruiting body comes out and it's going to die off anyways. You don't have to hack in the tree. You can just take the reishi off itself. So Canadian wild reishi, so it would have more of those shen qualities, right? Just imagine like the environment it comes from, the beautiful forest. All of us going into the forest for rest. We instantly feel it, and this reishi that's growing in that environment off trees in its own kind of native habitat, it is that quality comes through. So very limited edition, because again, it's just one dude out in the forest, and last year he didn't give us any. So this is finally coming back. It literally just arrived today, so we've got it in store. We put it on our web store as well, which, by the way, if you're interested, we're just doing a soft launch of our web store, and if you guys want to take advantage of it, 10% off. You just type in reishi into the comments, and if you're on Instagram, direct message us, because we don't have the same thing set up. So Nick, you said you love the reishi, so if you want to get some of the wild reishi, then just direct message us, anyone that would like 10% off the our online store, the new one. So just message us and we'll get you hooked up with that. And so $22 for the wild Canadian reishi. And the great thing about this is you can make so much tea with it, couple of slices per liter, and you got to do what's called a decoction, which is bringing your water to a boil, turning it down, add your reishi slices, and let it simmer. So at least 10-15 minutes, going to create a nice strong cup of tea. Best thing ever is that you can then rebrew it, right? So once you've enjoyed your first cup, you've poured off that liquid, and I usually make a pot. I'll do 2 or 3 liters at the same time, and brew all that up, pour it off, strain it out, put those reishi mushroom slices back in the pot, fill it up with water, and rebrew it again. So who's ever done that? Have you guys made the reishi tea before? If you have, give me a thumbs up. And if you haven't, well, hey, you've just learned, and time to make it. It's one of the most economical ways to get reishi into your diet. Yes, you can buy capsules. Yes, you can buy tincture. Yes, you can buy extract powders. Those are all good. They're all wonderful. But the simplest, the easiest, the most economical is through the reishi slices and working with it that way. I find that to be the best. So, hey, we've got Les on. There's Svetlana, Essential Wellness, the Walrus. Awesome. Hello, everyone. And yes, Beverly asks, is reishi good for cancer? Now, I can't tell you if it is or isn't, but we can check in with Robert Rogers' Fungal Pharmacy book. And what I love about this book, as well as Paul Stamets, is they have a section in the book specifically for mushrooms and related to cancer. So it's a whole chart, and they list off all the different types of cancer. So you could be researching bladder, breast, cervical cancer, esophagus cancer, prostate, lung, whatever it is. They've got a whole list along the top, and then which mushrooms. There have been very specific studies and is known for treating those types of cancers. So reishi is one of the mushrooms that covers off the most different types of cancer. So if we go along and we find reishi, so Ganoderma lucidum, it's all done by Latin name. Sorry, I should correct myself. It doesn't cover off the most. Trametes versicolor, which is turkey tail, maitake, they're also really high up there in their anti-cancer property, and probably specific to cancer have had more studies done on them than reishi has. But reishi itself, specifically breast, cervical, leukemia, liver, lung, and prostate. Reishi specifically really good for. So these are great reference books. Highly recommend having a couple of these mushroom books around. This one is fantastic. This is the old edition, the very first edition in fact, and why I like this one is because it serves as a pocket guide as well. So his second edition he upgraded, he must have at least tripled the thickness, and it's a beautiful big book, but it's one that's going to sit on your shelf. It's a great reference book to come back to. This one you can actually carry it around as an IV book. So the medicinal mushrooms, and it's specific to Western Canada. You'll find a lot of crossover throughout North America and even in the world. And if you're just joining us, we're talking about reishi. And I mentioned earlier, reishi is one of the mushrooms you can find on every continent in the world except Antarctica, and it's all its different forms. So, hey, you're welcome, Beverly. Thanks a lot. Wanda's typed in reishi. Awesome. So, so this book here, you can use it as almost as like a field guide, an ID guide. And I'll very often carry this book around. There's one of my favorites, the hedgehog mushroom. They should be coming out pretty soon. Hydnum rapandum. Very, very delicious. But today we're talking reishi. Who's got any questions? Post them down below. We've answered a couple of questions. All right. Do you have the book in store? Yes, we have this book in store right now. Quite a number of copies. And then we also have a couple copies of the Adaptogens. This works as a really great reference book. Reishi's absolutely in there. Pulled a couple quotes from that. So properties, let's just talk about those. So adaptogen. Cholesterol lowering, that's another really good benefit of reishi. Anyone dealing with cholesterol, reishi is fantastic for helping the whole cardiovascular system and reducing cholesterol. Anti-inflammatory, antioxidant, antiviral, heart tonic, hepatoprotective. So again, that liver, really good protection for the liver. Immunomodulator, we talked about it regulating the immune system. If it's over, if it's below, helps regulate, bring it into balance, as well as a nervine. So a nervine, that's a term in herbology working on the nervous system, helping calm and relax. Unless you're a cat, then you're wired backwards. That's why catnip, which for us would typically be very calming and relaxing, to a cat gets them excited. So nervines, calming and relaxing, and that relates to that whole Shen quality we're talking about. The herb of spiritual potency, calming, relaxing. Where can I get the book? Beverly asks. Yes, so the Fungal Pharmacy we have in store. Adaptogens we have in a couple copies as well. And then this fantastic one, Ancient Wisdom of Chinese Tonic Herbs, we're getting it back in stock. So I believe you can order it directly from Dragon Herbs in the States, but we do bring it up to us very often. Now, I wanted to share with you some of the kind of the legends written about reishi, right? So here we go. Ling Qi means spirit plant or tree of life mushroom in China. Qi, C-H-I-H, means red, the color of blood, and in the doctrine of signatures is related to the soul. Qi is an ancient name for various polypore mushrooms. During the Ming Dynasty, the fungus was known as Qi, and I'm not very good at pronouncing some of the Chinese names here, but red fungus. The Chinese character for Ling Qi, for reishi, is composed of 3 calligraphic characters or pictures that together mean shaman, praying for, and rain. Wow, very interesting. Okay, we got a question here. Hey, Toffee Wonders, thanks a lot. Have a great weekend. Nick's asking, do we have the spore oil? We don't have the spore oil. We do have the spore powder. We got it from New Earth Organics. And remember that reishi product I was talking about that was grown on the substrate of 42 different medicinal herbs? We are going to try and get the manufacturer who also sells the spore powder to add in the spore powder. So I don't think any reishi product will top that. Grown on a substrate of 42 medicinal herbs with the spore powder added in, that is just going to be phenomenal. And we're reaching out to the supplier right now. Hopefully we should have that in a couple weeks, so stay tuned. Right now, best that we got, reishi slices and wild Canadian reishi slices. Les, I saw you on there earlier. I'm not sure if you're still on. Wild reishi slices. I remember when we were down to like the last bag, and I was like messaging Les. I was like, Les, you got to get down here. We got the last bag. And so we did get one shipment. It's seasonal. He went out, he picked some for us. We just received it. We bagged it up. So this is going to be a limited supply, limited edition. We've got it on our web store. So if you're from out of town like Nick, give us a hit up. You can order it directly on the online store, or give us a call. We can send it to you. Or if you're in town, come grab a bag. But $100 or more is free shipping, and with our soft launch, if you type Reishi into the comments, you'll be able to get 10% off your next order. Hey Svetlana, thank you. Got to go for my shroom pizza now. Awesome. Yeah, put those mushrooms on your pizza. And yes, the Walrus 39, what's the best way to consume those reishi slices? So the best way is a decoction. So that's taking your water to a boil, turning it down to a simmer, adding the slices, and then letting that simmer. That will create you the best, most amazing reishi tea that you can reuse. You can rebrew those 2-3 times, and it's kind of the cheapest, most economical way to get reishi into you. Plus, too, I think there's something to the energetic effect as we talk about those calming properties, the relaxation, the shen. Nothing beats a nice hot cup of tea, right? So in my experience, it accentuates that. It's a little bit different than taking the tincture or throwing your extracts into an elixir, unless you create an elixir that has more of other herbs and that effect, and it's also going to be warm too. So all right, Nick, okay, awesome. Check out the web store, great. How long do I let it simmer? Minimum 5-10 minutes, but essentially the longer you go, the stronger it'll be. So you can go 15 minutes, 20 minutes, an hour. The longer you let it simmer down, the stronger it's gonna get. The more medicine it's gonna pull out, the water will reduce, so it's just gonna concentrate. But minimum, 10 minutes will give you a nice, good, strong brew, and then you'll still be able to rebrew it 2-3 times. Essentially, how do you know when it's done? Well, the strength of the flavor and the strength of the color won't be as strong. Reishi is very palatable, has a slightly bitter, slightly earthy flavor, and just a mild golden browny red type color to it. So, hey, Beverly, you're so welcome. Brent, you're just offering 2 to 3 slices per liter. Yeah, about that. So again, the number of slices you put in is dependent on the strength as well. So, something like the wild reishi slices, they're a little bit larger, thicker, so maybe it's 2 of those, and I might even break them up into smaller pieces, whereas the cultivated reishi, not as large, but it is actually a little bit more dense, the fibers, so 2 to 3 of those as well, but you can also add more to give you a stronger brew. So how about you guys? Has anyone brewed reishi tree? How strong do you go? Do you add in like a massive handful and like reduce it right down, or do you go for a lighter tea, just a couple of slices per liter? Let me know. All right, any other comments, questions? Just keep posting it down below. This has been fun. What should be the next topic that I speak on? Do you guys have any preferences? We're going to start highlighting some different foods, just have some informal chats, and you can let me know in the comments. So if there's other herbs, we started off this conversation with that question. If you could only take one herb, what herb would you take? We had a couple of comments: Gynostemma, Shizandra, Chaga, Reishi. Well, we've been talking Reishi, but if there's anything else, Shilajit. Yeah, okay, Walrus. We'll do a call on Shilajit for sure. We could go deep with that one. So let me know down below, what herb would you take? And maybe I'll take that as the clue. We'll take them one-on-one. If that's the herb that you would take, that's the herb that we should talk about next over the following couple of weeks here. So trying to think if there's anything else here. Hope you guys have had fun. I'm going to just list off a couple of more of the kind of references to reishi throughout the ages. Reishi, meaning divine or spiritual mushroom, is from the Japanese tradition, where it's also known as the phantom mushroom or varnish conch. We talked about that. You can see that nice glossiness, the varnish-like appearance that it has. It may be related to the transformation of Buddha into Rishi, meaning forest sage, right? Have you ever thought about that? Have you heard that term Rishi to mean a sage, a forest sage, and Reishi? I've often thought about that. It's only one letter difference. Reishi has R-E-I-S-H-I, whereas Rishi, the forest sage, is R-I-S-H-I. I would say this is definitely a forest sage, and consuming it might just turn you into a forest sage yourself, right? The herb of spiritual potency. I mentioned Dr. Terry Willard's story about those in the Amazon that had a different name, different relationship to the mushroom, that used it as a connection back to the forest, something to kind of ground them, especially when they went into the city. When they're overwhelmed, the reishi was going to help calm and help ground them. Another name means the 10,000-year mushroom, or mushroom of immortality. The Japanese also know it as Saiwataki, good fortune mushroom. Yeah, all right. Shining bright due to the bright varnish-like appearance. Excellent. Lots of, so much reading you can do on reishi. Like literally, it'd be impossible to cover it all. Just wanted to give you a taste, just have some fun, get on here and engage. Walrus says, we just named our daughter Sage, Forest Sage. Cool, there you go. Awesome, Forest Sage. She's a Rishi, right? These beautiful kids coming into the world, nourished by all this wonderful medicine, and their characters, right? The Shen, the spirit that they have is pretty astounding. When do you like to consume the tea? Brent is asking. Yeah, almost literally any time of day for me. It can be a great first thing in the morning. It can also be fantastic at the end of the night. I'd mentioned that I have a number of customers that have used reishi tea before bed, to calm anxiety or to help with insomnia, right? To get a good, full, deep night of rest. Reishi can be fantastic before bed, but it can be used anytime. It can be used morning, noon, or night. Very oftentimes when I'll create the reishi tea, it just sits over on my stove, and then any time I can pour some off, either cold, use it as a base for my smoothies, my elixirs, you name it. I will also throw reishi into any soups and broths as well, right? So, there's only so many cups of tea you're going to drink in a day, but what other liquids? Well, you're going to have broth maybe. So if you're doing a bone broth, you add in the reishi into the broth. Now you're getting reishi in that way. Or any coffee drinkers, right? Instead of water, use reishi tea to brew your coffee. All right, Nadine says caffeine in reishi. There is no caffeine in reishi, so it's non-stimulating in that way. So you don't need to worry about the caffeine there. Yes, and Brent, and it kind of ties into what Nadine is asking there. So no caffeine, but being that adaptogen can help regulate energy and mood, but I would say more in the direction of kind of that calming. Not that it's going to put you to sleep. You can have a reishi tea in the morning, and it's not like sleepy time unless you need it. Like that's the idea, the aspect of the adaptogen, helping you adapt to whatever is going on for you in that moment. So. All right, Wandering Wellness and Harmony just joined. Welcome. We've just been having fun. We've been talking reishi. We've been diving deep. We've been talking all kinds of herbs, and I'm about to wrap it up. So thanks for tuning in. Thanks for watching. We're going to do a number of these coming up in the future, so stay tuned. We're going to pick a different herb. So post down below what other herbs you'd like me to cover, to chat about, talk about, where it comes from, some of the myths, some of the legends, some of the lore, and then really how to use it and the medicine and the benefits that we're going to get. So stay tuned. Again, if you're just joining us and you want to take advantage of our 10% offer for the Wild Reishi Slices, limited edition, only have a few of these bags. It will sell out, or our regular Reishi Slices, you can go to our web store. Just type in Reishi, R-E-I-S-H-I, into the comments. If you're on Facebook, if you're on Instagram, direct message us and we'll hook you up with that discount code, which is our soft launch for our brand new web store. And we are just getting that going and out there. So take advantage of that. Otherwise, thanks for tuning. We'll see you next time, whenever that'll be. But you'll see it in your feed. Hopefully, like the Light Cellar, give us a follow, and we'll see you again soon. Hey, thanks for tuning in today to this episode. Be sure you subscribe to the podcast so you can get access to all the future episodes. As well, if you're ever in Calgary, Alberta, in Canada, you have to come visit us down at our Bowness location. You can also visit our web store, thelightcellar.ca, and be sure to follow us on Facebook and Instagram. Keep up to date. Love to keep in touch. Send me a comment, an email. Love to hear from you. And of course, absolutely post a review about this podcast on iTunes. Thanks for listening, and we'll catch you on the next episode.